Hey guys, welcome in. We're getting ready for another daily dose of League of Legends and LCS news. I'm Mad Magical, and this is Worth TV. So the first thing going to be G2. They have two things to talk about. I mean, makes sense. I guess it is G2. They might as well have two things coming down the same day. But anyways, gotta talk about the first one. Going to be Perkz renewing his contract for 3 years, so he'll still be on the team until 2021. And with the loss of both Sven and Mithy, I think this is going to be something that really shows the relationship continuing to go strong for both of them. And I look forward to what they're able to accomplish in the future, especially with the next little bit of news where AOC has sponsored G2, where they're going to be giving monitors for the training facilities of G2, and really does show at least a little bit that EU is still having some money come into the region, where there are still possibilities for sponsors and partnerships. So I'm sure there's been the mass exodus, there's been all the loss of money because it's all going over to NA, and the talks of whether franchising will happen or not in EU to help out these teams not succumb to the mounting pressures of losing all this money, which is why we see certain teams leaving, not even wanting to bother anymore. So hopefully it all bodes well for everybody, but this is at least a little bit of a shining light in a dismal situation for EU. So if we're going to talk about partnerships, let's talk about Riot and the Big Ten Network, BTN, having just signed a 2-year deal to work together, including all 14 teams that are a part of the BTN. This includes Penn State and Nebraska, who had previously not hopped it in during the inaugural year that these two had been working together just last year, where we saw the deal initially starting, and it was initially just 12 teams, but now all 14 teams are going to be a part of it. So it's really nice to see, especially because we get a look at how the collegiate scene continues to grow, and Riot is wanting to make this whole scene flourish as a whole unit, where they're dropping down, what is it, $35,000 for scholarship money for each one of those schools. That's going to be $5,000 per player, 6 players per team, and then another $2,500 for 2 staff members on these teams, totaling in about $490,000 in scholarship money for all of these players. This proves that Riot wants to have League of Legends continuing for many years to come, and not in just any way. They want it to be akin to basketball, baseball, football, hockey, any of these big sports that we always see. But next, let's talk about GIGABYTE Marines officially announcing their new roster. Well, yes, they did lose Optimus and Levi going over to 100 Thieves Academy. Really excited to see what they're able to do in NA. But that's for another time. We gotta talk about the GIGABYTE Marines. They brought in zeros into the top lane, 0 Day into the mid lane, and yes, I love the double zeros that they have for the team. The bigger acquisition for them is Chris Kyle in the jungle. And while you might not have heard of him, this is a player that's been renowned over in the Indonesian League. He is from Vietnam initially, but he played for Headhunters and was able to get first place with the team. And honestly, he is considered to be very similar to Levi. Loves to play this aggressive style, in-your-face attitude, but sadly, they didn't have very much success when they went to the GPL. I think they only picked up 1 win there. So it wasn't really the best of signs for him initially, but he is someone that we have to keep our eyes on. Maybe he's able to show that he is just like Levi and bring back GIGABYTE Marines to MSI and to Worlds. This is stuff that remains to be seen. We'll have to keep our eyes on them, especially Chris Kyle, see what they do with this new roster. So the last bit of news, probably the biggest piece of news for the day, is going to be that Jatt is retiring from casting. And I have to put the emphasis on retiring from casting because he is not retiring from NALCS. He said in the Dive, the podcast that him and Azale and Kobe did recently, where they were talking about it, and he was saying how going away from the best of 3 format means they don't need as many color casters, so he feels that he can still drive the story and narrative from the analyst desk and wants to make it more akin to an actual sport, where if you look at a lot of things such as the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, it has a lot of these people who stay on just the desk duty, but they are able to build up such a story that we haven't truly seen here in NA. Sure, you have Dash as the host. He's been an amazing host for such a long time. And you had Mark Z as kind of a staple person who was always reoccurring. But outside of that, it was always shuffling. Zale would go to the casting role, he'd go back to the desk, you'd see Jatt, Kobe, anyone really from NA kind of switching back and forth. So they weren't able to have this rhetoric where they could always have this banter back and forth. You kind of knew how things would be. I mean, if people thought the TSM Jatt memes were strong before, they're probably going to be a lot stronger now, because that's going to be his job, is to have this story, have this narrative continually built between himself and the other desk people. So honestly, it's a really exciting thing to see coming in from NA. So with that, guys, that's going to be the end of the video. We had some interesting things, and honestly, I was kind of surprised when I was at work initially. I didn't see too much. Came back on my break, only saw like 2 bits of news. So I was like, it's gonna be a boring day. Went back to work, came back home, and I'm like, oh, look at this coming in from Jatt on the dive. We get to see how he went. GIGABYTE Marines announced their roster. The G2 stuff was already kind of rumored before, so then it was more officially released. So, exciting day in the end. And now that we're drawing closer to the starting days of things like the NA LCS, we have the BTN Riot collegiate thing starting on January 15th from a lot of these teams. So, we're going to have exciting games to talk about, and even more things. If we thought it was already getting pretty decent before, it's going to be a lot more where I'm going to be able to break down all these games, break down what we're seeing from these teams. But until then, guys, until the next video, have a wonderful day.